Okay, we'll call the Pownal Select Board meeting to order. Thursday, October 11th, 7 p.m. Agenda approval, public comments, approval of minutes, warrants, mail, town administrative report, resignation, report on the town fair, municipal plan grant, economic development committee status and appointments, town insurance, town safety plan and agreement with the Southern Vermont Medical Center to be our resource for occupational examinations, town hall alternative update. Vermont DEC Waste Management Prevention Division funding phase 2, Solid Waste Alliance report, high school student shadowing of road foremen, report on sheriff taking traffic ordinance, first reading and DOM, highway work job description, amended personnel policy, budget report, under old business, town newsletter, open meeting law discussion, under new business, gravel purchase, external auditor, and temporary assessment. Motion accepted. Anything to be added? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Nelson, can you do something about this?
Turn it right off.
Wow.
Thank you.
Much better. Thank you, Mike. Okay. Public comments. We have anybody here to make public comment tonight?
Yes, I'll start
All
if you'd
right.
like. I have a couple of concerns that I want to share. You okay where I am? My name is Mike Slattery. I've lived in North Pownal for 40 years, just a hair under 40 years. I know that's hard to believe because I only look 39 years old, but it's true. Raised my family here, been on the Planning Commission for 13 years. For most of those 13 years, I've been the chairman of the Planning Commission, except when we could coerce Rosemarie into a year of it. I'm new to the Development Review Board this year, so I'm volunteering a fair amount of time here in town, and I have some concerns. First, a little bit of background. In 40 years, as you might guess, those that have been here that long or longer, we've seen a fair amount of controversy here in town. I mean, dating back to the racetrack and the No Dice Coalition and so many other things with that property. And there were a lot of controversies, and emotions have run high at different times. We saw it with Beaver Wood. We saw it with a variety of different things. I'm not seeing emotions running quite as high as I'm seeing them right now. I'm seeing a lot of things that concern me as a long-term citizen here, somebody who really loves Pownal, Vermont. I will tell you my two concerns, but I will make a statement first. I firmly believe that we're the only town in this state that can make a controversy out of a municipal planning grant application. Unbelievable. Just truly unbelievable. After going through so many of those, and they're so routine, and now there's controversy surrounding it. It's embarrassing. It really and truly is. It needs to stop. Here are my concerns, and I address this to the legislative body here. Two big concerns. Municipal volunteers that are going to stay home. So at the conclusion of the drafting and the adoption of our new town plan, I've been fortunate enough to work with Mr. Walker here, our town administrator, on helping me begin to fill some positions that the town plan calls for. One is an economic council of some kind, be it formal or informal, so that we can get a group of Pownal citizens together, put some ideas together as to how to boost this economy here in town. So I've asked Michael to kind of keep me in the loop about how he's doing on this. He sent me an email, and I won't tell you a name here, but it was an email that came in just a week or two ago, and this is where my concern just really heightened. So this is addressed to Michael Walker, where he reaches out to this person who he had identified and asked if they would consider being on this economic committee. And Michael says, I've not heard from you. I hope it's because you're busy doing great things rather than no longer interested in our committee. It's okay if you decide against it, I will understand, but let me know. Gentleman gets back to him. I have been busy and ready to leave for the week for work. Still wrestling with the decision. Working hard in a startup industry. I'm leery of committing the hours, which is common, right? I mean, we're all leery of committing the hours. We all work. But here's the one. This is the last paragraph. There is also this climate in town where seemingly any action is met with disdain. Thus, there is the possibility that this work will be rejected and warped politically. That was an eye-opener for me. Should be an eye-opener for this board, right here. The second one that I did was I started to reach out to people knowing that Nelson may be vacating his position. We need people to run for various things, fill various town offices. One of them is going to be the zoning administrator in the spring, Linda, I think. So I went to an old friend here in town, former contractor here in town, businessman, in a lot of different businesses, does a lot of volunteering. And he had approached me a year or two ago when he was kind of following the developments in the town plan, things like building inspector, certificates of occupancy. Started to ask me questions about could he get involved in stuff like that if that ever came to fruition. Sure, that was a year ago. So now we have this shiny new town plan. We have Nelson stepping down as zoning administrator. So I bump into the guy the other day and I say, you know, here's an opportunity. It may be time. He said the same thing as this guy said. I watch what goes on in Pownal. I watch this vitriol that's going back and forth on social media. I'm not doing it. Boom. This guy would have been great. Would have been great. So those are my two concerns as somebody who gives a lot of time to this town. It's all gone on for too long and to too high a degree. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'd like to just make a short comment, if I may. So I'm Shannon Barsati, and I'm a member of the Planning Commission, and I'm also the chair of the grassroots organization here in Pownal called Discover Pownal. So I'm here tonight to set the record straight about some incorrect information that was disseminated by our select board member, Mr. Jarvis, on his Facebook page. Mr. Jarvis stated that Discover Pownal's involvement in the municipal planning grant is a conflict of interest because some of our board members on Discover Pownal also serve on the Planning Commission and Select Board. First of all, it's not a conflict of interest for municipal board members to also do volunteer work for economic development in their communities. Last week, I attended a leadership conference that highlighted many examples of municipal leaders involved in local economic development. Bristol and Bethel, Vermont are good examples. Secondly, Discover Pownal's only involvement in the municipal planning grant was the letter of support that I wrote. Our town administrator, Mr. Walker, asked me to write a support letter because having a community organization as a partner was one of the grant requirements. The people of Pownal voted to hire a town administrator, and one of his main duties is to put together grant applications such as this one. I support the hard work that Mr. Walker is doing for all of us in Pownal. Finally, I'm concerned that Mr. Jarvis is not only casting suspicion on the work of Discover Pownal, but is also undermining the work of our town administrator. In fact, Mr. Jarvis is speaking out against a process that both the Select Board and the Planning Commission have already legally approved. The municipal planning grant application has been transparent and democratic, and to say otherwise is to cast doubt on the integrity of our town government.
I'll give you a chance, and we'll see if we get any more public comments.
Yes, I have a comment. So my name is Megan Randall, and I'm a new member of both the Planning Commission and the board of Discover Pownal. I voted to leave the letter of support from Discover Pownal in the grant, in the municipal planning grant, for one simple reason. I support the hard work, and along with other board members and select board members, I support the hard work put into this grant. I've written grants. I know how essential it is to follow directions in grant applications and to get them in on time. The application required letters of support, and Michael Walker did the smart thing in asking a group he knew would get a letter out quickly. In my thinking, To delay signing off on the grant would have caused us to miss the deadline, or losing any possibility of getting $11,700 for the town. I do not receive any gains from sitting on the Discover Pownal board. I do it out of a desire to promote Pownal's interests. My role there is as co-chair of Pownal Proud. What does Pownal Proud do? We encourage people to pick up roadside litter, and we clean up illegal dump sites and try to discourage dumping. We want the people of Pownal to know that it's not hopeless to try to keep our roadsides clean. There are many good people in Pownal picking up garbage because they love the town. We all do the work voluntarily. Discover Pownal helps promote our cleanups, so everyone in Pownal can have a chance to help out. Everyone, including everyone on this board. I haven't seen too many of you. After all, aren't we all interested in keeping Pownal beautiful? To attempt to discourage engaged citizens from taking part in Pownal's government by making unfounded and ill-informed accusations is in no way helping our community. To criticize our town administrator for doing his job correctly is getting in the way of Pownal's progress. Maybe it's time for the select board to be trained on the real meaning of conflict of interest.
Anyone else have any public comment at this time? You have any public comment you want to make? Okay. You wish
Okay,
to
well,
respond?
a couple of things. I didn't say anything against elected officials volunteering their time, and I was complimentary of Discover Pownal in everything that I said. So a lot of this is not, I'm not understanding what the source of it is. I can read the statements if you want.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay. And there was nothing against the volunteerism. I mean, I was very complimentary about volunteerism. I was very complimentary about the work that Discover Pownal does in our community. That the conflict of interest came into play with the officers of Discover Pownal voting for it, not volunteering their time. So that's where I saw the conflict of interest. The other thing that bothered me was I was asked to sign off on this without ever seeing it. So when you say we've already approved going forward with the grant, that's substantially different than what the actual narrative was and what was in the supporting documentation. The narrative and the supporting documentation was very much about smart growth and very much about fighting climate change. None of that was voted on. So that was my objection to it. That and also signing off on it without seeing it. What I received on email was a scanned copy of the signature page. If you can get a scanned copy in email of the signature page, why can't you get the application and be able to read it before you're asked to sign off on it? That was my objection. That was a large part of the objection, and there were other objections in there too. So when we go to the Economic Committee, I learned from the banner that one of the primary initiatives on the Economic Committee is smart growth. That wasn't discussed when we agreed to go to the Economic Committee, and when we talked about the town plan, that went from shall develop an economic to should to finally could, and yet that became one of the top priorities once we approved the plan. So we moved forward with this, and I'm seeing it again in the municipal planning grant. If I'm not allowed to read the municipal planning grant and these or any grant application until it's due, or without actually reading the documentation, I can tell you I'm going to vote no on every one of them. I will not sign. I was not elected to write blank checks, and I'm not going to do it.
I have a question.
I don't think you'd be writing a check, but
No. The first question.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
I want to hold
interrupt you.
it. But first of all, I thought we signed the resolution, not the planning grant.
Yeah.
The resolution is what the board approved to sign, okay? We don't sign the planning grant. What we did is gave them the permission to apply for a grant to the resolution. Then it's their job to put it and submit it to the grant people. that's, I think there's some misunderstandings
That's how we do
here.
the road grants also.
Well, there could be there could be a misunderstanding of how they work, but if they work in such a way that we're approving things that we don't know what they are when we approve them, I won't be approving anything.
Here's what we approved. We approved that we would put matching funds for a grant that they would apply for. That's what we approved. And that's what we were signing, that we would approve to put this 10% or whatever the amount was. And we voted for it back in early September. So they would go away and write a grant, because here's what happens. If we don't allocate money and say that we're gonna do that, why would they write a grant? They can't get it to begin with because they can't get the money. Right? So there's some steps that have to be done. Now, I agree partially with what you're talking about. How do we then get more feedback on this grant that we have approved to put the money into? Because what it seems like is they write the grant, then they put it up and send it up, then it comes back down and it's worked on. Now, I was gonna read off my little thing here. I'll try to make it a lot shorter. But the BCR, let's face it, I don't know how many grants I wrote through the years.
Many.
Many. And basically, I've had to do the same thing, get a resolution for money and so forth. Then you write the grant, but I don't come back to the select board and say, here, read my grant and put it forward, because I know if I get the money, that planning board can't do a thing without having public hearings and people there to go through every step of it. We just went through it with the town plan, with a grant. And
Well,
we did, okay?
No, I
And-
didn't say we didn't.
And basically, we had the BCRC, this is where I get sort of concerned with conflict. The BCRC writes us the grant so we can do this, then they hired us the consultant, which get paid from the grant. So to me, that says in a little bit.
May I?
Yeah, how do we,
Over 10,000 has to go out to bid. The BCRC will bid on it along with other grant or other consultants
and I
in
think
the
they did
state.
last time too,
Right, and we hired somebody else besides the BCRC first,
and then you
and then we went to the BCRC when that was non-grant money. That was town money that was used. They were less expensive. They were here helping us anyway, which is their obligation. So we used the BCRC in that case. But for a municipal planning grant, part of the checklist is if it's over 10 grand, and we're not even guaranteed to get the full amount that we applied for, we get half of that, we have to go out to bid. So they might not get it.
yeah.
They might not get
Well,
it.
and like I
So,
said,
so there's no real conflict there. Below 10 grand, as planning commissioner, I would probably say we should use them because they're right up to here in it anyways. They've been with us lockstep
that's
on
right,
this.
and I agree with that. But here's what you got. Now, the other thing I saw in the grant, which is the question with Discover Pownal, every grant I've ever written wanted support from groups within the town. And a number of times those people sit on the board. What if I wanted the right one for business?
Yeah.
Does that mean that Jimmy can't vote on it from the planning grant? Because he runs a business in the town? Or you? The question really is, we need people in the public involved in where it is. The concern I would have is when people say conflict, is when somebody gains a monetary
Yeah.
Advantage.
from this advantage by being in that grant. That would be, to me, would be a concern. As far as them meeting with the group, talking with the group, everybody else is gonna be able to ask the questions, just like we are tonight, about those groups and what's going on. So I don't see that as a conflict, I really don't.
Well, you understand that I posted this on October 1st, and it was October, what was it, yesterday, I think, when I got the full narrative. And I've been asking for it since September 27th.
May I ask
But
a
again-
It had to
question?
be in,
Question.
it had to be in on September 30th.
Nelson.
I know,
Yeah, hold it.
that's my question though. If it had
Hold
to be
on,
in by
hold on,
September 30th, why
hold
couldn't I
on.
get it?
I don't want, I'm not looking for this to debate, because I haven't
You're
finished
right.
my thing yet. But the bottom line is,
Oops.
don't interrupt the chair.
Yeah.
That's, the other thing is that we just need to slow down a little bit and understand what a grant really is and what the process is that we have to go through to do that. The town plan was a prime example. Come on, folks. How many people stood up and had changes made to that town plan because of the hearings?
Yeah.
This is the same thing that's gonna happen with this thing. You're gonna all have a chance to speak and talk about what these bylaw changes or the subdivision regulations are, and I hope you all come out and do it, just like I said at the town plan. We need to be involved, the public needs to be involved, because whatever comes out of this is what the town's gonna live with for a while. And that's the point we should be pushing, not that somebody voted on a grant that they shouldn't, or somebody, because what we're looking at is we're being, how can we point a finger at somebody or so forth? I'm with you, I think the town has gone overboard at this point, and it's on both sides. I'm not gonna say it's one side, because both sides are responding to each other, and it's going on way too long. And the other thing is, I think with this one here, for some reason, this Vermont Community Rural Development thing that we did in our town, we've done two of them. We did one in 2006 and we did one in 2017. 2006 went pretty smooth. For some reason, this one in 2017 has left a very bad taste in the people's minds, because there's some things that came out of it.
No, wait a minute.
That needs
It's
to be
before
clear.
that.
That's way
The
incorrect.
fact that it had the word green or, you know, smart growth, green.
It's not what came out of it.
You know, that's what
Yeah,
was in the
nothing-
title
nothing to do with it.
before
Nothing
we even
positive came out of
started.
it.
I know,
And
I
people
know.
who don't believe in climate change and who are deniers are getting furious about people wanting to do something about climate change.
Yeah, but you guys that they're attacking are not doing things about climate change. and
Exactly.
that's what-
Yeah,
what-
because that was all shot down.
No, what you're not. What you're doing is the things that they're attacking today, that I see in there, is if you're doing something for the farm down there, if you're cleaning up the river and the roadside and our road crew has to go help, we're supposed to have a vote because we're spending money for the road crew to go over there? I read this
Never
thing,
helps us.
you know, and the same goes with what you were doing. How far do we drive this down the road, which just drives some people crazy? Because if we had a vote for everything that occurred through that Vermont Community Rural Development, we'd be spending so much more money than we did for 2 loads of gravel, or for the road crew to go out and pick up some garbage bags and so forth. I think we as a select board has to be reasonable about our decisions in allowing town people to do certain things, and I think we've done that. But at the same time, as I said before, you did have 170 people sign something, so you have to weigh that. And if something comes in here that's costing you a large sum of money, folks, we better look at it differently.
Yeah.
Just like we would
I
anything.
also want to make a comment that 170 people signed something based on a lot of suspicion and a lot of claims
That
that
happens.
Well, that's-
never came to reality, Bob.
But don't,
Well,
hey,
but
hold
the-
it.
that's,
That's
but you
not
gotta be
the,
careful of the name calling, suspicious naysayers and
No,
climate
yeah, what
deniers, and this is the name calling.
This
This
is
is
Because some of the
what
things
about-
that
stuff
were
that's a
claimed.
little-
When you
All right,
say,
hang on. Let's not-
this is
Nelson.
what occurs, and it needs to stop.
Yes,
But
please.
it needs to stop. What's happening really is, just because you misunderstand what somebody else might be getting across, take a little time and respect both sides. And let's make it work, not make it fail, make Pownal look bad in the press. Let's do it so we
Yeah.
grow and people respect our town and wants to do something for us. And that means you have to listen to both parties, and it doesn't mean you have name calling, and it doesn't mean that you get way off on these tangents that are nowhere near what we're really trying to do. And that's what I see. You know, I just couldn't believe that we received something because somebody was gonna dump 2 loads of gravel on town property in a parking area so people could park and walk over to the river and put their canoes in. That to me was just unbelievable. But I understood the frustration of the person because of where it was coming from and what group it was. And I understood that. And I appreciate it, but I think us as a board had to make a decision on that one.
To be clear, it wasn't about the $200 or the gravel. It was understanding how we treat petitions. I believe that was her question. So to trivialize it as just a question about a load of gravel is not what the question was.
That was the second question. The first question that came in was about why weren't we voting for the gravel? The second question was why aren't we looking at this petition and seeing that we have to do that, when in reality we didn't.
All right, well,
It was
just,
a advisory petition.
it never made it into the mail folder, so I haven't seen it.
It was about the gravel.
You know, it's about the gravel. But the question really I see is, that's when we get way off tangent from what we're trying to do, because we get into these emotional
Right.
Thanks.
Nelson, can I make a comment? I know that I didn't raise my hand in the beginning to make a public comment. My name's Amelia Silver, and I am a resident of Pownal. And because I am newly on the Discover Pownal board, I can't offer my services to this group, but normally I would, because I think you actually need a mediation. And I'm a mediator, and I see constant conflict that's coming out of kind of power base in Pownal of people who have been elected to do something, and people taking positions and just standing behind their positions and not understanding what other people's interests are and respecting other people's interests. And I'm saying that about both. I don't like to say sides because I don't think there are sides here. But I think that this is true for everybody who has been involved in the conflict. I have not been involved in any conflict, thank God, maybe because I work in Manchester or something. But I don't want to lecture you, Nelson, as the chair of the board, but I think that it is your job to take control of this situation in the absence of having a mediator. And one of the questions I have is, how much training did every person who came onto the select board and who comes onto the planning commission, how much training do people get in what their actual job is, what their responsibilities are, and what they are not? Because what I'm hearing is some confusion about roles. If you're on the select board, that doesn't mean you get to tell the planning commission what to do. And if you're on the planning commission, you're not dictating to the select board. People, we have these different municipal organizations in order for stuff to get done. And democracy is messy, and it takes a lot of time, and it doesn't always go smoothly. But basically, if every group is saying, I need to be able to decide everything, then nothing will get done, and we have total anarchy. And this town is way too small. It should be ashamed of itself for slipping into that kind of anarchy. And we are absolutely, cutting off our nose to spite our face. I was working in Montpelier last winter, and when all this stuff, this conflict first stirred up, people in the legislature said to me, what is the matter with your town? I was so embarrassed. And I said, no, this is a fantastic place. There are all these people who really care about our town. And they said, well, why are they rejecting all these initiatives, and why don't they want any help from rural development? Why don't they, there was stuff about the schools. But, I think that it's really important for people to know what the processes are. And Nelson, you started to describe it. I think it might need to be on a piece of paper. This is what happens when a grant is applied for. And this is what your job is as a select board member. This is the planning commission's grant, and this is the process. Step one, this is what happens. And step two, we approve we give a resolution, and then they apply for the grant, and then we all get to give our opinion about what happens. These are pretty fundamental things that I think that people may not know unless they have to do it, and unless they're involved in it. And the last thing I'll say is that I think that anybody who is elected to a public position, whether it's dog catcher, select board, planning commission, is the planning commission elected?
Appointed.
No, that's appointed, or volunteer, or whatever the jobs are. It's really, really important to respect your job and to not do things that undermine the integrity of your position. And I think that when people engage in the kind of fighting that's gone on in social media, which I haven't seen much of, but I've heard about it, it really undermines the position that you hold. Not necessarily undermining you as an individual, but it makes people disrespect that body that you sit on. It makes people disrespect the select board. And it's like what Mr. Slattery said about people who are really qualified not wanting to serve. If people who are serving are disrespecting their own municipal process, they shouldn't be serving. And they shouldn't be doing it. Do something else, you know, go carry a sign and be a protester or something. But this awkward democratic system that we have is the best we've got. And people need to respect it. And if people on this, in this group or in any group, are not supporting the work of the town administrator who was hired to help out, they should consider maybe doing a different job, because it's actually, that is a conflict of interest.
Well, and I just wanted to say one more thing on that. I appreciate what you said, and just that, you know, I really didn't want to come tonight. I was going to ignore all of this because I'm just trying to get work done. You know, I'm just a doer, and the reason that I came is because I wanted to support Mr. Walker. You know, I feel like I don't want that to get lost. I think that what Amy said is really important. I think maybe mediation would be a good idea, or some training. But just from a practical matter, just getting things done, his job is, he's caught in the middle of this, you know, and I don't want that to get lost. You know, I mean, I think it's important that we respect his position.
And delegate appropriately to him.
All right, so what I posted on my page was absolutely respectful. I didn't get into any back and forth with anybody, in that there were a lot of disrespectful things that were posted there, and some disrespectful private messages going to citizens. There was a lot of egregious activity there, and I was disappointed to see it. I was on a business trip. I posted my opinion, which I think was, you may disagree with it, but it was respectful. It was not an attack in any way. It was my opinion, and I'm not going to stop posting my
I
opinion.
consider it an attack when you say that a person is
Hang on.
a
Do you mind if I,
Yeah, let him
It's like
finish.
saying they're
Even if I-
dishonest.
Hold it.
even if I'm wrong about the opinion, then you can say that you're wrong because, but that's not what happened.
That's right.
A lot more than that happened.
I agree with you.
And
It's not-
so, and as far as supporting the town administrator, it feels to me like I'm being accused of undermining
I don't
him.
know
I think
anything
I
about
actually
you.
heard those words.
I don't know anything about you, I'm not talking to you.
but the-
I'm talking generally when I said that.
I understood. But there is many things that I appreciate about Mr. Walker, and many things that I have complimented him on what he's doing, and there's some things that I disagree with. No one gets our blanket support. I mean, we as an elected body, he answers to us. And I can't just give a rubber stamp to any and everything that he does and come in here and say, we're going to support you, we're going to support you. Of course we support him. He's our town administrator and he works for us. But that doesn't mean we buy off on everything he says and just rubber stamp any of his recommendations. I have to represent the people that elected me, and they elected me to speak my mind and to do what I believe is right.
I think that one last thing, and then I'm going to be quiet, but to me, a lot of what the controversy is a lack of clarity when you say he works for you. He works for the board.
He works for the board.
For you as an individual.
I didn't say he worked for
And
me.
so
He
the-
doesn't work for me, and he doesn't work for Nelson, he doesn't
Let
work
me-
for Jenny.
let me finish
He
what
works
I'm
for the
trying
board.
to
You're not
say.
interrupt her, let her finish.
What I'm
It's
trying
both
to
ways.
say,
Come on.
I'm just trying to say that there needs to be some clarity, because it seems that there's misunderstanding of, does a select board member go back and wordsmith a grant? Or is it the town administrator's job to finish that process? There are many grants that the town applies for. I'm asking, does the select
I'm
board
gonna-
read every grant
No, we
in
don't.
detail?
Don't. And I think what we're getting,
What were we
we-
asked, I guess my question would be, what were we asked to sign? I was sent a
the
signature
resolution,
page.
the resolution is what, the
And-
thing that
But
was.
the rest of it wasn't there, so
I know.
so how would I know?
That's right.
And then
I
I
agree.
asked for all of it, and I didn't get it until this week.
Well, you got the grant this week. I don't know if you got the whole resolution or not even.
Yeah, and what I got from someone else was different than what I got this week. It was not the same thing. So
No.
there was some supporting documentation that was
No,
missing.
you asked to see the grant, and I think it was sent to you. But go.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Sir, when you asked for the grant, I made 2 copies, one for you, Mr. Smith. I emailed you and said they were on the corner of my desk. And it was quite some time before I was to understand you got it. you did not get a copy. I sent Mr. Slattery because I didn't have Mr. Smith's email, and he indicated that he sent it to him.
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller, and Mr. Miller then subsequently said he didn't get it. If there's any confusion in that, I apologize. Like I said, that morning I had them copied in a folder, and I emailed and said they were on my desk, and if you wanted them via email, I would have done that if there was any confusion. What kind of, and I put this together as, I think, the third topic to discuss, and I put it together at your request so that the gentleman could be heard. You indicated that it was a controversial private citizens group, and that it was not a normal procedure for a grant. And I'm looking at this as the state recognizes them as a group, and that's why I included them. And I didn't know what the controversy is, and as I say, the gentleman needs to be heard, and if he proposes that this changes in a different direction, he has the right to make that proposal. And as you spoke, I work for the entire board. I'm trying to do the right thing the right way, and I'm not trying to get anybody. I appreciate everybody's support and so forth, but I'm not trying to do anything nefarious here. I'm trying to write a grant and get the town money. If the gentleman's unaware of what normal process is, then I think it's an obligation that we need to make sure that he knows what that process is. And again, I was unaware that they were considered a controversial group and not know in what light you felt they were controversial. And if you had an objection, I would want to listen to that objection. I don't. I look at them as, they've been recognized by the state. I'm looking for money from the state.
Understood.
Yeah, and in that light,
What is the controversy?
Well, some of the behavior of the officers of that group has been controversial. Of course, the volunteers, the cleanup efforts, I mean, that's outstanding. It's wonderful that that we're doing those sorts of things. But some of the behavior of some of the officers of that organization has been egregious.
What egregious?
Well, we'd like to hear about that
Yeah,
in a
we'd
public
really
forum.
like to hear.
If you, I can have that discussion, and that's probably more appropriate for an executive session. But we can go into some of those. I don't have it all with me today, but I can show you some of the posts, some of the attacks.
Tough
some
word.
of the,
Egregious.
well, you came in telling me that. Never mind.
This is, again, I want to
This
get
is-
back. This is
I
where
will
we need to
stand by
get.
anything I said.
This is where we need to get past all of this, and hopefully people learn to communicate better on both sides. Because I read some of those. I read posts from both sides and so forth, even though at one time I was not allowed to look at some posts that went in Front Porch Forum because I was blocked from that person's thing. But that's okay, there's other people that tell me what's going on, and I say, what are you talking about? But those are the things that you see and hear about, and where it is. It's sort of, I go back to the Vermont Community Rural Development thing. If the other side, you wanted to vote, they decided to have a vote, and if the other side had come in and stuck up their own stickers on the things, it would have been, hold it. Why are these people trying to mix up this vote? And I think what happened even then, it hasn't got over from those days to today. And it needs to cease is where I'm at, and maybe mediation, I know you talked about that too, is the way to go. The question is can you get all those parties in the same room and do that?
I would caution against defining differing political opinions and differing opinions about what is best for Pownal as obstructionist and some of the other language. We do have different opinions. I know that
I read the same thing you did with the obstructionist and those things. I didn't use those words here, and I wouldn't, because I think people are entitled to their opinions and are able to do it, but at the same time, they need to learn to respect the other party and calm down so that we're not getting so far carried off the center, what we're all trying to do, which is make Pownal better.
I totally agree, and I don't think that I've done anything disrespectful.
I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
if I may, I want to go back and make a legal explanation of the folks that submitted a petition. there was some confusion on that, and if I added that, I apologize. They sent a petition, or I got an email stating that they were upset that a particular group suggested that something be done to a town park without any town vote. And what had actually happened was an individual who just happened to be on an organization came forth as an individual and recommended that the board act on what was their statutory duty to do so, was to apply gravel to town property, which is wholly within their right to do so. So that was a misunderstanding. There wasn't somebody from a group coming in and asking to spend municipal dollars without a vote. They have a municipal duty to apply that to the property, and they did so. The individual is acting as an individual. The petition, if and when they would like to write another petition, I'd be happy to help them and guide them. The petition that they wrote, which I believe had 172 signatures, suggested, actually sought to demand that this board not follow anything of a particular group of people, either monetarily or physically. By petition, you cannot overturn this board's statutory duty to act. So while, as the chairman indicated, 172 signatures on a piece of paper stating something means that you have 172 people that are strongly in disagreement with that. But that petition was not legal. You can't overturn the statutory. And I want to make sure that they understand that, so that you don't feel that we trivialized anything, and that they were disregarded. They're taken very seriously their opinion.
And I believe that explanation was given at a select board meeting and accepted. Right?
I'm not quite sure it was, but I felt I needed to make sure that was reiterated. But thank you.
Okay, I think we're talking this to death. If everybody's in agreement, if we miss something, now's the time to say something. If not, I'm going to move on with our agenda.
I was just going to make one statement in response. When some citizens make an accusation, that doesn't mean it's true. The conflict of interest thing has come up repeatedly. The board sought legal opinion on that. I think the board received legal opinion that, and I think this was back when the newsletter was under the auspices of the town, that there was no conflict of interest, and yet there are citizens who won't let go of that piece. And I think, I don't know how to prevent that, but I think this board needs to recognize that some things have been settled and move on.
I think that's where I'm at.
Okay.
And hopefully we can settle things out here tonight. I wish some of the other side was here, because I think that's what needs to happen, and move on. And if we can't, then I think mediation is the right approach. If we can get these people in one room and have somebody there to mediate and discuss what's going on. But that's where I am with that.
Well, just for my part, if I sound a little defensive, I apologize, but it seems like I'm outnumbered here.
Have the lights on.
Sitting here getting ripped into.
Can we end this on a high note?
Well, I would hope
Yes,
that
yeah.
I didn't
Go ahead.
do that.
No, you.
Here.
Please, end on a high
We
note.
need to outlaw social media past cocktail hour. 6 o'clock.
I have said more than
Is that going to get
once.
me in trouble, by the way?
No, I think that's a brilliant
I've said that
idea.
more than once. The problem is with Facebook and social media is, think of it like a bar conversation. And you hear one thing at one end of the bar, you hear something at the other end of the bar, and by the time it gets in the middle, it's altogether different. And that's sort of what you get on Facebook and these things, because people all of a sudden add a little bit. You know, you tripped on the way out of North Pownal, but by the time it got down there to Pownal
Yeah, I
Center,
fell off a cliff, right?
you were so drunk you couldn't stand up.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah, but that's the way the story goes.
Well, the other thing is there's no emotion in it either, you know, and I didn't mean to make you squirm here tonight, but I can't see that on social media, you know, so.
Well, you're
I mean,
right. If you look at the date,
right, there's no emotion
You don't
there.
see the people's
Activity
So it's
gets
easy
worse
to
as the
take
night
something personally on social media and go, what are they talking
Almost
about?
taken
But
it out.
anyway, that's,
We almost
no
took it
more
out. I
after
wanna move
cocktail
on.
hour.
Okay,
Let's
thank you
move on.
guys. Okay, moving on. Approval of the minutes of 9/2018.
Oh, boy.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Giants.
Warrants.
Giants and Philly Browns.
Yeah.
Let's move something.
Did you doze off down there?
Nice to see you.
I had a little spiel I was gonna say, but I said, let's go to 8 already, I got it.
Okay, moving on. Payroll ending 9/28/2018 in the amount of $7,491.96. I got them all out of order on this. We'll get them back. Okay, accounts payable ending 10/12/18 in the amount of $14,758.57. Bennington Sheriff 4,000. IRS almost 3. Let's see where it goes. Okay. Accounts payable ending 10/5/18 in the amount of $18,669.21. What was the big one on this one? Okay, $7,000 for capital tractor. Must be something we're paying there. And John Ray was 1,000, 2,000 for Vermont Computers, and IRS again, almost 3,000. Okay, pretty. You pay those guys pretty
The
good.
7,000 is for the mulcher
Oh, yes, right.
purchase, and then
Right.
we're gonna get reimbursed over $5,000.
Okay, so we'll get that money
Yeah,
back.
Yes.
it's coming back in.
Thank you. Okay, accounts payable ending 10/13/2018 in the amount of $3,832.65. Accounts payable ending 9/28/18 in the amount of $21,427.10. 6,000 is insurance. We got here 4,000 attorney. Green Mountain Power was another 2, almost. Credit Union was another 15. Beamers is another 28, and 25 for the IRS. They get in on every one of these, don't they? Okay, what's your pleasure, guys?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, I'll let you do the mail down there and
Yes, sir.
proceed.
First, we're seek approval from the select board to use town insurance to hold a select board candidate forum at the elementary school. Is that a select board?
It's state representative.
State representative, thank you, pardon. State representative approval to be held at the elementary school, and the group seeks to use town insurance and request that you move that.
Can I add a comment?
Please.
Sure.
This is the Friends of Pownal. We've done this in the past, and I think Ron and Bob, and you weren't there, but
My
you
wife,
participated.
yeah.
Your wife represented you very well.
Yep.
And Jenny
Far better
can, contest to the fact that it's a very non-partisan presentation. It simply provides the citizens of Pownal with an opportunity to hear from the candidates who are running for office. And since the state rep position is up this year, we thought it was important to provide that opportunity. There is another opportunity for that. On the 23rd, the the Association of
University
Women are hosting a candidate for all of the Bennington County candidates. But we thought one for focusing specifically on the 3 candidates running for the state rep here would be appropriate. I don't know for certain it's going to happen, but this is the first step. We need your approval so we can then have the space, and then we'll approach the candidates.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? My comment would be is to make sure you notify Woodford in
Yes.
case they want to bring somebody down.
Yes,
Okay.
And I'll just say careful of the dates, right?
right,
You
yes.
know that.
Well,
Uh,
the next step will be that the school has most dates. There's only about 2 between now and the election that are filled, but we need a moderator, and we need to be where the 3 candidates can all be there.
Okay, I had the motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 May I-
Thank you.
Municipal Employment Law Update Workshop will be on Wednesday, November 14th at the Lake Maury Resort. That's put on by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, if anybody should be interested. You have an invitation to a Sunrise Family to the Sunrise Family Resource Center for the 2018 annual meeting. It's October 25th, Thursday, from 5:30 to 8 p.m. Light supper and cash bar. It's at the Bennington Museum, 75 Main Street, and the keynote speaker is Amy Sullenberger of Action Circles, and you're to RSVP by October 22nd. There's an email for what you can eat. You can RSVP to.
And can I make a comment on that? I don't know if everybody here is aware of what the Sunrise Family Resources Center is, but it's a wraparound services for families. And they, though it's in Bennington, they serve a number of Pownal families.
Thank
We
you for
contribute towards it.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The next item, we're not going to move on this, but I want to make sure that you're up to date. American Premier Underwriters, APU, is placing test wells, and they were going to place a test well for which we gave them access through an access agreement. They can't use that site. They were going to move the site to Route 346 and where's the intersection?
Cedar Hill.
And Cedar Hill. And gratefully, Nelson intervened. We got a hold of Darcy at Wastewater, and she said that's an unacceptable site. So you'll hear more later, but I didn't want you to hit you blindsided with that when they come up with that.
Yeah, the two force mains that run through there.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. Next is from the Board of Listers. There's errors and omissions in the 2018 grand list. Dean Road, the GLC Solar, was incorrectly coded. They were charged education tax. They received back from us $6,766.22. The Pownal Town School District had incorrect coding. They are tax exempt. They will receive $1,458.56. I would add that the listers are working very diligently and very hard, and they're trying to make things squared away, and they appreciate the hard work they're doing. There was a Miss Betty Burdick. She's the last member of the Pownal Center Senior Center. She had an accompanying package that she was the last owner of record for a building at 2758 North Road, Pownal, and she wanted to dissolve the organization and give the land to the town. It's now part of the school district, I take it?
Yeah, it went back to the school.
Went back to the school district. Right.
Do we need to sign
The
anything
building.
there?
I don't think so.
Yes, we do.
Do you really?
Maybe the thing.
The first page
It's
we
on the
have.
front, the arrows and
Is that-
Oh, the errors and omissions, I beg your pardon. Yes, you do.
So can I get a motion to approve the
Errors and omissions.
So moved.
Sorry for that.
Clarification on your building and not.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did everybody hear Jim's clarifications, the building, not the land?
This is the
Right.
building that's the
The schoolhouse
historical,
building.
yeah.
Yes.
Just the building.
Can I ask, who are the current listers?
Sharon,
Nichols.
Nichols,
Sharon Nichols,
Jody Morris.
Jody Moore, and Tammy Soul.
Oh, we have three, okay.
Yeah, you have three. They're working hard.
Yeah, we've been actually letting them take courses and go to courses,
Uh-huh.
which the select board has the same opportunity, planning board.
Mhm.
We do that. I know that was asked earlier and I forgot to mention. But we do try to do as much training as we can. Trouble is, what you do is you have a lot of people that have full-time jobs and it's hard to come out there.
Nemrick Fund Accounting sent us a memo that they have switched to a company called Dominion Tech Computer Services. This is just advisory, and we're going to be working with Nemrick a little bit more when we talk about the listers later on.
Okay.
Mr. James and Kathy Kosis sent a letter, and I spoke to them extensively. I emailed them extensively today. They would like to request the Mason Hill Road North be set at 25 miles per hour speed limit. I recommend the board allow. Go ahead.
Jim is here if you wish to.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. I didn't even know you were here.
Oh, no problem. No, you can continue.
My recommendation to the board is to approve that and allow me to go through the steps to do a traffic study and to confirm the correct speed limit, and we'll make a decision later on how to post it. The process is that you approve it, we go, VTrans, we ask for a traffic study, They look at sight distances, geography. They do a traffic study to see how fast folks are going now. Generally speaking, they look at 85% of the traffic that's going now to gauge what the traffic flow is now. And they use all that data and they come back with a decision. The decision that the board has the right to go 5 miles higher or 5 miles per hour lower than that recommendation. There's a possibility that the speed limit could be recommended to go higher. Spoke to the highway foreman about this. He sincerely believes that all the gravel roads should be 25 miles per hour, which we might want to address at a later date. But I do recommend that we accept his letter of recommendation and you allow me to start moving forward with the traffic study.
Is there any speed limit sign at all there, Carl?
No, there's not.
I don't think we have to do a study to put up a 35-mile-an-hour sign. I would recommend that we do that right away and then go ahead, have a motion to go ahead with the study to do the 25. Because if we put something up there we're allowed to do now, and if they're speeding past that, they can write a ticket.
Question. Do we have to go for a traffic study if we decide to turn all our roads to 25 that are gravel?
They would have to do a traffic study on each of the roads.
At 25.
At 25.
Each road.
35 we don't.
I have a question also. Is this where they put up the thing that gauges your speed, the speed of the
usually
car?
put
That's part of it, yeah.
Part of it, but there's a band that goes across the road. They do some. I've taken part in a few of these where you actually go out and make physical observations.
And is there a cost?
I don't believe so. No, this is V-Trans.
Yeah, they've done it before.
Yeah, they've done it before.
We've had them do it on 346. That's why you see 3 different speed limits that go through down there at the other end. They'll come and they do this. Again, it's when they're available. But that's why I'm saying I have no trouble with the board moving to go forward with this. I just think at this time, if you're really having a major problem up there, we should try to do something that people can ticket. I don't know if you're in agreement with that or not. We could put a 35 up.
I guess I'm very confused with the situation in town where there are so many roads that have 25 miles on them, and I do not think a study has been taken on those roads. How these signs are being erected has been confusing, and I have not been told.
Well, Jim, if they're yellow, they're advisory.
Unfortunately,
If
I
they're
have to say
white-
they are not yellow. They are white.
If they're white, that's
I
what the
have
speed
one
limit.
at-
I'm just saying, I'm
No,
just
it's all right.
telling you what a statement is. That's all.
Sorry, Ron.
Sir,
I'm not here to argue about anything other than I see it a 25-mile-an-hour road on Brookman Road, which is not as dangerous as Mason Hill Road north, and I'm just confused because I can't get a good answer of how the sign was put up.
I don't know how the sign was put up, but I will tell you, if it's 35 miles an hour, there's a 25-mile-an-hour speed sign up there, it's not enforceable.
Even so, I would love to have a 25 mile per sign on my Mason Hill Road.
And that would be the board's decision.
Well, we could do that instead if you wish, but be aware that they can't enforce it. If we put up a 35-mile-an-hour sign, they can enforce it.
It will give the visitors that are coming up to the area something to look at and say, okay, yes, it's 25 miles an hour.
Right.
Right now, we have visitors from outside the area that are driving these back roads, hitting potholes. I invite you to meet me at the bottom of Ladbrook Road
I've gone
and,
up it,
and
no.
come up Ladbrook Road at 35 miles an hour, and you tell me when we reach the top how you enjoy the ride. All right? And I'll tell you, every single road in Pownal is like this. When it's graded, cars can run off the road. I've slipped almost on some of these graded roads. And it's not the point of the people in town that are living
Your
here
road's the same.
that are saying, you know, we'll drive 25 miles an hour. But then you've got others that are just saying, I could care less. I'm just going to drive the road, trucks, cars.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, and if the board's in agreement to put a 25, I'm just telling you, we know the sheriff patrols up there, and if the sheriff is patrolling up there, he can't enforce a 25. But if it was 35, he can start giving them tickets tomorrow.
Well, if, a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
The question would be, if we had the 25, the sheriff could still enforce 35.
No,
he couldn't?
No,
it's
he
an errant
cannot.
sign. The sign doesn't adequately
gotta
represent
have
the
35.
posted speed limit.
But I thought all towns, all roads, whether posted or not, were maximum 35.
Unless posted, I think.
Unless posted otherwise.
Unless
That's
posted
right.
otherwise, but as posted 25. Logic would seem to think, yes, you should be able to do that, but you can't. You have a 25-mile-an-hour sign.
Yeah, so I agree there's a real issue. I mean, I know that on Mount Anthony Road, we've been widening the road for years,
Still not
thinking
wide
it,
enough.
making it safe enough, but it actually encourages people to drive faster, and it's actually less safe. We have more accidents up there than we ever did.
As an intermediate measure, may I have permission to ask the road foreman who accompanied the gentleman and see if there's other signs that we could put up, such as caution signs, beware signs, type of thing that we can do as an intermediate measure to help you? And have the road foreman meet with you and...
That would be great. At the same time, I mean, if it's a gamble that I have to make, whether I go 25, 35, maybe the request should be, because I've talked to many people out there that just say some of the people that drive these roads are going too fast. Maybe it's time that Pownal does a study on the roads, because they're all potholes, because they're graded, because they've got so many blind corners. Maybe it's time now, and then table my request and have a study of every single road and get it over with. We're moving on to better things in Pownal. I can hear it tonight. I've seen it happening. Maybe this is the best thing to do, is just let's get it done correctly and not piecemeal it and have 25-mile-an-hour roads, signs put on some roads, some not having them, and anything. So I propose that you say, okay, let's do the
Full study.
full study.
I'm going to agree with Jim on that. I know Carpenter Hill Road, and I'm going to say it's actually not the out-of-towners. It's Vermont plates that are driving down the middle of the road at 50 miles an hour. Take your life into your hands every single time.
So cut across from
And
Bennington.
all the curves, so probably
Directly
same
do
thing on
that,
Mount
I'll write the
Anthony. So
letter.
I
So do
think
we need a
I agree
motion
with
for that?
Yeah, you need a
I make a
motion.
motion that we have the study done on
I
all
second it.
dirt gravel roads.
I'll draft them.
We got a second here, Jenny.
Second,
Any
yes.
any further discussion?
I'd like to make one comment. I mean, they'll do a study, but they will, from the experience that I've had sitting on this board, they did a study out on South Stream Road. All right, they posted that at 35. And they said, we can't, they wanted it brought down, and they said, nobody is going that slow now.
Yeah.
That's what they did, and it's not, so they couldn't do it. All I'm saying is what the state says. So we got that lad road, I wouldn't get down that over 20 miles an hour. Down the thing, it's crooked as a snake, and you go right in the riverbank.
I never seen about that wide.
Yeah.
So I mean, I understand what you're saying, but as far as the state going in, I mean, if they do that, we'll have different signs all over. If we could get the state come down and give us an evaluation, well, maybe 35 is too high. Maybe it should be 30. Something. Or, you know, or you can say, hey, look, it's okay except for this one or two roads, we'll slow it down there. I don't know, whatever the state, I mean, they do the study, and that's what that machine is for. It checks everybody's mileage, how fast they're going, and it also that rope across the road, how many cars are going.
I'm not sure if you have it. I did send this to Mike. It is, and whenever I come in, I always have information to make sure that the board does understand. There are guidelines. There is a sample in there of the ordinance that does have every single road labeled as a different speed. It's based on just having that available that someone looks at. Whether there are signs at each road that have a different speed limit, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's what is best for that road to protect the people of that road and people that are walking the roads and illegal four-wheelers that might be on the roads. It's to protect everyone.
Okay. I had the motion and a second. Discussion closed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, sir. I have the sheriff's report. I apologize up front. I was working to prepare, pretty busy. So I'll just make this brief. I did look through, they did a follow-up. I had asked them to go down to the racetrack on occasion. There was some damage being done to the solar panels. It appears they were somebody was throwing objects across the fence and breaking solar panels, causing destruction. They have done that. They also stopped a few folks that were dumping, and they managed that as well. They did have a breaking and entering call, and they followed up with the state police, and an arrest was made on that occasion. They had 2 heroin overdoses. They had a domestic assault where an arrest was made. And unfortunately, a young boy at 11 years old, a call which I went on, perished. He was in cardiac arrest, and I vouch for the sheriff's deputy. He performed exemplary in that case. I didn't get a chance to break this down as I normally did, but I did go through it. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer that later.
All right, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the mail.
Moving on to the town administrator's report.
Sir, with regret, I suggest and request that we accept the formal resignation for Mr. Jason Lansky of the Highway Department.
No.
I deny his request.
No. Justin.
Justin. I'm looking at you and reading this. I'm looking at him and reading
I know,
it.
and then they named the grandson Jackson.
That's Justin Jackson Jason, huh? Yeah, that's, I imagine you would just confuse me.
No, Justin is not allowed to leave.
Justin Olansky is not allowed to leave.
No.
No, he's picked up a job with our town next door, and
Did you have an exit interview with this guy?
not yet. I'm going to have an exit interview. I already informed them of that.
Yeah, I'd just
And we-
like to know what the reason was, if it's really, is it more money, is it better benefits? Just so we know when we're doing
Yes
next
and
time
yes.
we do budget.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that without the exit interview. Yes and yes.
Yes and yes?
Yeah, $6 an hour more.
Their gain, our loss.
Yeah. So I asked for a motion with regret.
Get a motion?
Motion with extreme regret.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions, nays, got it.
I also, in your packet, left you a report of the conference I went to. I'm not going to read it. If you have any questions after reading it, you'd like to ask me, please do so. It was an excellent conference. I deeply appreciate you allowing me to go to it. We are starting to implement some of the items that I have been given for Vermont leaks and cities and towns. We've already beat the municipal planning grant up.
Yes.
Economic Development Committee. I'm proud to announce that we have 3 folks that I seek to ask for appointment to our Economic Development Committee. Mr. Adam Fedorsky of 3121 South Stream Road, Pownal. He is the gentleman is a businessman focusing in energy. He founded a power company, and he co-founded another energy company. And I have a Mr. John, I hope I pronounced it correct, Gianto, Pownal resident. He moved from Williamstown. He's been here since '97. And he believes that he can be a great asset. He's a financial advisor from an Albany-based firm. I interviewed this gentleman, and he was sharp as a tack. Also recommend Ms. Karen Galise. She is on the school board, Solomon Wright Library Board, and she is the director of the Oak Hill Children's School. She's a very vibrant lady and very intelligent, and I think she'll do great things. And respectfully request board appointment of those 3 folks. If you'd like to, I'll pass around the letters.
So moved.
We have copies.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Where do we have copies? Is that in the package?
It's in the package.
Yeah.
I saw one of them.
Here's Staples again.
I had a question, were there any other, oh, got 'em. Were there any other applications?
Yes, there was one, the gentleman that Mr. Slattery indicated backed out.
No, I mean actual applications that didn't back out. Are these just the recommended ones?
These are
Were there others?
these are the applications we have to date. My preference is to
Oh,
have
okay.
5 folks, and we can do that once we start moving forward. I'd like to set it at 5 with your permission. We have a little bit more members, but we can get going with 3, set up the board, set up what we'd like to do, what they would like to do.
And if you do that, you might actually get 2 more people to go.
That's my thought, yes. When we start rolling, they see it on TV, they see some of the actions we're taking, somebody might jump forward.
Okay, so,
I've heard interest from a couple of other people, so
Oh, please bring them forward.
try and push them to.
so with that,
I see
we get a
two.
motion?
I'm
A
sorry.
motion to approve all
We'll
3.
discuss it. Got a motion approved?
I'll give you all,
Second?
I'll give you all 3 here, Bob. You
Okay,
can
what's
look
your
at it.
discussion?
That way you-
I've got Adam and I've got Karen.
Oh, you don't have
If you want.
John?
That's resignation order.
Beg your pardon.
And that's Adam again. I've got Adam and I've got Karen. I don't have the financial advisor, John.
I just handed you one. I just had it in my hand. I handed them all over to you.
There you go. Here,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Well, that was Stugatz for a moment.
No, that was me.
gotta push those glasses back up.
It's the nose.
It's like me.
Better than my
I have
age.
to do that, otherwise if I drop down, my reading won't be right.
Excuse me, who seconded the motion?
I didn't-
Any discussion?
No, thank you all for volunteering.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Did I get an aye?
Aye.
Didn't hear you, Ronnie.
I hate committees, but I'll give it an eye.
It's unanimous.
At least I'm
Let's
honest
see what
about it.
happens, I guess where I'm at. Let's
Honestly,
see where
that's
it goes.
So, Ann, can I ask a question about the committee?
Sure.
So, I was a little disappointed to read the banner article and say that it's all about smart growth. I mean, that was the first thing they said in the banner, was the
You can
of
blame me for
underlying
that. I
principle is-
didn't mean smart growth as in the context of, I'm not sure what that particularly means in the context of what you're talking about. I meant smart as intelligent growth. I've not been
Well,
here
they put
long
it in
enough to understand
quotes.
there's a different context to it. I meant intelligent growth, common sense growth. I didn't mean, but you can blame me for that. I did put
All
that.
right. And just to be clear, Vermont defines it. There is a definition in Vermont. It is a political initiative.
Okay, I'd like to look at that.
Yeah, yes.
It's huge,
You would
and that's what we
directly do that, I'll look
negotiated
at
out of the town plan. In fact, the town plan only refers to smart growth twice, and it's the exact same sentence, once in the energy section and once in the economic section. And that's where I was a little bit concerned about, not a little bit, very concerned, that we negotiated out, and yet after approval, it became the #1 priority for the economic committee, and from what I'm reading, the municipal planning grant also. So it's a little bit,
If you're concerned that that's based on that, you're talking to I'm in my rookie year and I did not know that was
well, I'm not,
actually,
it's
yeah,
not
and I'll be happy
directed
to,
at you.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
I'd be happy
directed
to-
at you.
Yeah,
But,
I'd be
yeah.
happy to revisit
But
that
I
for
did
you.
want to know where
Yeah.
it came from and,
Yeah,
and
if
what
you-
does it really mean?
My big
Because
mouth.
that there's a lot of opposition to that in town, and it's legitimate political opposition. It's a political position.
You have a voice and if that's an opposition, I'll look at that and get back to you.
Okay.
Passive, our insurance, our town insurance, update was sent. Department heads all worked hard. Linda worked hard putting this together to send back. There was some concerns that I had when we got this back. It appeared that the town transfer station wasn't covered at all, so we added that. And we, there was some equipment with the highway department that wasn't added. The chairman had asked that at some point we bring someone down from passive that give you an idea how our coverage is developed. And I asked at the town fair, and they'd be happy to do that. If you want to give me some kind of a target date, I'll contact them and ask them to come down.
As soon as we slow down.
As soon as you slow down, I'll answer. The town safety plan, I met with Mr. Wade of Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, and as you can see, I have a lot of notes. We're on the right track, and what I would like as a motion this evening, part of the health and safety plan, I would like to use Southern Vermont Medical Center Health and Occupational Health Clinic for physicals, referrals for our employees. And the reason I ask this is, A, we have a consistent single doctor that looks at our employees. 2, he's occupational health. And as a discipline, they have a great deal more knowledge of what happens in the workplace with personnel in the municipal workplace. And they look at studies, they look at other injuries that have happened across the country, and that's what they're trained in. The gentleman was from Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, was excited that we're working on a safety plan. He has an awful lot of suggestions to make. And we are going to have a safety plan as soon as I get all the information on it. This will give us a significant savings. They grade us by what's called a mod, and any number below 1 they consider good, 1 or below. We're at a 1.28. If we could get it down to 0.85, we'd save $15,000 right off the bat. we'd save money in workers' comp alone, $40,000. So there's a significant amount of savings to have. We have a safety committee. We meet. I was given some information by the gentleman on safety for trucks. I'd like to get automatic defibrillators for town hall, for one of the highway vehicles, and what was the other suggestion that you made? Another AED. I don't remember. And personnel training, CPR, and first aid. We do all these things, and we follow OSHA. We have a report log. All those things, we save money, and it's not that difficult to do. And we're going to be moving forward with that.
And just a quick question, that doesn't cost anything extra too, right? So it's all savings, and these are things that we gotta do anyway.
There'll be some expense, for example, the CPR training, first aid, AED, automatic external defibrillators, they will cost some money. Perhaps there would be overtime. The cost, and this is where a motion would be needed to allow me to accompany the league to Southern Vermont Medical Center and negotiate a deal contract price, so when we send an individual over, we have a contract price for a visit with the doctor, notwithstanding any other tests.
Yeah.
If you authorize me to do that, I'd be happy to do that, establish that.
And that would come with, here's the cost and here's the potential savings, but then what about projected savings? Right, I mean, you talked about some of them here, and I just want to make sure that it's, these aren't best case savings, these are
projected savings.
Projected savings.
Now, if we have another loss, 2 years ago, a rescue member injured himself. That was a $143,000 loss, and it brought Armada. If you have a loss, it's going to go up. So that's just a fact of life. But doing the right thing will get us savings, and they are projected, not expected. So it could be a little bit more, it could be a lot less, or a little less, but we will see a savings.
right. So some of that, if I'm hearing you correctly, some of the savings are actually fall into the realm of probability, because that 1.28.
Very well spoken. Yes.
1.28 it needs to come under 1, and if we're doing all the right things, something happens,
Correct.
that number goes back up.
Correct. But if we're doing all the right things, for example, near miss reporting, if we have an event that, for whatever, it didn't cause an injury, but it close and could have caused an injury, we report that, we learn from that, and we prevent further injuries down the road. So if we use the system and we use it correctly and we adhere to it, we save money just by having this in place.
Right.
And then the collective benefits of having these in place to really see reduced injuries, no injuries, hopefully zero injuries, by contamination from a chemical or trips and falls, simple things like checking handrails on our buildings, doing things like that.
Right. So the enhanced safety is paramount. So, but I also want to get a handle on what the potential savings are, what the projected savings are, and what kind of probability that comes into, and the cost. Right.
I will try to nail that down. I'll try to nail that down more. Obviously, it's kind of a moving target. There is a saving.
Well, there's a monetary saving, but there also sounds like there's a personnel savings in the sense of preventing it from getting injury. And when personnel are out, that costs us money.
Costs us over time.
So there's some cost relation to all these things that we basically need to try to prevent. That's what I would say. It sounds to me like we're more a prevention type program than it is how can we scratch this much money off the top of the line right away.
Correct.
It's more of a prevention.
And as far as the contract with the hospital goes, occupational health, is you have a prospective employee that's going to come to work for you. They're gonna do a physical, an exam, to make sure that he meets the expectations and what
And it'll be
requirement to protect the town's benefit.
Right. And no, I understand that. I just want to
standard cost too.
But
yes, usually there's a standard cost, notwithstanding any tests that may need to be done above and beyond. But yeah, for example, we hire a person and they go and get an occupational test. The doctor comes back and says, you know, here this individual has disease A, B, C, D, and is not physically capable of doing the job. Actually, they wouldn't say that. All we're allowed to know is that the person is not physically able to do the job. They don't tell us his medical history at all. All I get is reports saying yes or no, physically fit or not physically fit.
Right, and it's just, mine is just to make sure that we understand all of the pieces. The enhanced safety, what we have to do anyway and what we have to do anywhere, and what are the potential savings and what are the probable savings.
I will try to tighten those up for you,
Those
sir.
sort of things.
Yeah, it certainly will make people much more aware to look for those things, any program we put together. Because currently, I know some people might be out there looking to see what's the loose handrail or something else, but a lot of people are just trying to get their job done. They're not necessarily looking for the other safety things that might be there that they can be trained to do every day. Oil on the floor, you know, cleaning up, you know, there's things of that nature.
Mr. Chairman, may I have a motion to give me permission to?
Talk to the hospital?
Yes.
So moved.
Get a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay, under the heading of grants, I finished this just prior to the meeting. This is your first look at it. This is a revolving brownfield fund from Department of Environmental Conservation. Landfill, we had a project, Green Lantern Solar was going to put a solar array, and they backed out of it. We had a phase 1 EPA evaluation that yielded what we knew was going to be obvious, that we'd have to go to a phase 2 evaluation. The phase 2 evaluation is, let me get the number correctly, $53,700, and we don't have the money. So Agency of Natural Resources has a brownfield revolving fund, and I've applied for it. It is a revolving fund. While it isn't necessary to approve it tonight, please look at it. And it is a revolving fund. As monies go, they're gone. And we would, as soon as you could, read through it and please let me know at the next meeting whether we should send this in or not. Yes.
When you say a revolving fund, you're talking about that they basically have funds up there that are limited at a set time, and you're
Correct.
trying to get in and
Yes.
just mix?
Right. The last time I asked about brownfield funds, they said we don't have any more. This new round came out, they got federal money. I'd like to tap in with the phase 2. And I will assure you that they're going to do phase 2. And my next mission is to try to find money to do whatever they tell us after phase 2. I think it's blatantly obvious that something's going to be demanded of us to fix that site. Trying my heart out to get some money to get this done. We're going to have to do it anyway.
Well, the more that we can get done, even in the, phase 1 was done
Right.
with
Then,
money
yeah.
from somewhere else.
Right.
Phase 2, if we can get the money somewhere else, then at least at that point, we'll be at the stage where we know what we have to do, and then we'll have to find money, and if we can't find money, guess what, it'll sit there until we do.
So does this mean when we approve this, then you just jump when the time is right to jump?
No, ma'am,
Or
I
do
send
you
this
have a-
off to them whenever you approve it.
Oh,
And, you know, based on other conversations we have with other grants, I want to make sure that you all understand, you read the grant, you have any questions, and you come back and ask.
I for one am not gonna, I trust your grant writing. I think that's why we've hired you. So if you just give the overview of what the grant says.
The grant, basically, application process whereby I answer simple yes and no questions based on population. Will the project result in housing or mixed-use development? No. Is this involved with the Brownfield Reuse and Environmental Liability Act? No, it's not. Town information, simple town information, and at the back of it, there are several attachments that go into detail of what was done by the Johnson Company for phase 1 and what their recommendations were for doing phase 2, which includes a detailed list of costs for a phase 2 evaluation. And
that's what you're basing the question for the amount?
correct. And then finally, you have a diagram of the solar field. And I even posted the legal notice for the project permit for Green Lantern Solar.
So, Nelson?
Go ahead.
So since we're not meeting for 2 weeks and this, it's timely and it's a grant that I'm gonna motion that we say go for it now.
Okay, so I got a motion, I get a second for the motion.
Second.
Okay, and this in no way commits any money from us at this time?
No, it does not.
No, it's an average.
And what discussion for?
Please.
So this is just a study, this isn't the actual repairs.
No, this is the phase one, where we walked the site and found that, oh boy, we gotta do a phase two.
Right.
Phase two is more extensive, and that's described in the back of the grant.
Right.
But
still, it's a study, it's not
a
the
study.
actual repairs.
No, it's not the actual
of
repairs.
Fixing the landfill.
Yeah,
No,
because-
they're gonna tell you specifically what you have to do.
And I promise,
And
they're
it's
gonna
over
find that we've got
I
to
understand that, I just want people to
Yeah.
It's over
understand that.
$50,000
Just
that
a
we don't want to
study.
spend, yeah, so
Yeah.
I say
Just
go
a
for the
study.
grant. Yeah.
Now, the caveat being, there's no guarantee that they may come and say, look, we can't give you 53, we can give you 40. Then I'd have to come back to you and say, okay, do you want to take the 40 and make up the difference?
Right.
And that would be up to you.
That's right. Okay, any other discussion on this?
And this is the entire application on it, right?
This is the
What
entire
we've got in
application,
here.
this is it. This is
Okay,
it.
and I mean, it's this thing.
Yes. It's a fillable form online.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Nays? Would we have to sign something here tonight?
Yes,
Just so you can get this
Please,
out?
the signature page is,
Send it around? We'll
Why don't
sign.
I start it because then it can go around.
it's actually, it just requires,
Oh, it's not, no, we don't have it.
There's a consent for access on the property, I see, where we sign.
if I can get my fingers to work here.
Signature property owner or authorized representative, it's on one of them.
And this would be, it's not paginated, it'd be this page right there.
That's when I saw the
We-
consent.
And we, all-
You all don't
there's
have to
only,
sign.
only
No, you don't
Nelson
all have
has
to
to
sign it.
Yeah, so basically, we just approved to do this, so I'm gonna take that as you gave the authorization for me as the chair to sign.
Yes.
Okay,
Uh,
We didn't vote though.
yeah.
There was a motion and a second, we didn't vote on it.
We did.
we did.
We all said
Okay.
aye. You even said aye.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll take a motion to have me sign this if you wanna do
Yeah,
that,
that was the.
I'll motion for him to sign it.
instead of the full board. Because it also basically says signature property owner or authorized representative. We could actually authorize you to be the representative and have you sign these.
Do whatever you see.
I think that would make sense.
I think it would too.
So if I take a
I
motion for
I
that,
motion for, oh, can you give me the wording again? I motion
authorized
for
representative,
Authorized representative to be Michael Walker for these types
fine
of
for this
grants.
grant.
For this grant and just this grant or?
Yeah,
grants
because
in
you don't know what
general?
the next one is.
This grant.
You want to
Otherwise,
give
he
me
could
keys
sign
and
some of
say-
them, never see it.
So I motion,
Second.
Okay,
Well,
any
hang on,
fur-
didn't you already sign it?
No, I
No.
didn't.
Oh, I thought that's what that was.
They wanted me to, I didn't. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Any nays, abstentions?
The next item is the biennial report on solid waste. I went with Mr. Shuey to the meeting in Shaftesbury. I couldn't stay for the entire one, but I sat and read through the biennial report on solid waste, and I want to make sure that you understand that there are some substantial changes that will be coming down the road. One of the things that the state is proposing, and I spoke to Mr. Botso about it, they call it the EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility, with increasing difficulty in moving and storing and finding a home for some of the paper and plastics. The state wants to, much like what they do with electronics and light bulbs and so forth, to tack on a charge to the producer of the product. So if you're making plastic water bottles, you'll find that you're going to get an additional charge that's going to help pay for the disposal of that bottle. On one hand, that's, you know, the rational method of doing it. The other hand, and you have to consider, and I mentioned to Mr. Botsow, the manufacturer is probably going to take a dim view of having to pay more money, and you take that into consideration. If that you want to look into that more, I suggest you might want to look at that. It may cause companies to move elsewhere. if there's no competition on the other states, if the other states aren't doing it near us, he suggested that most of the manufacture of this stuff is not in the state, but that's a general statement. I'm not sure if that's complete.
Well,
and I just want to make sure you understand the ramifications.
What I find if it's water bottles, a lot of the other states are already charging deposits. This state isn't. But the real question comes down to not so much, because I agree with you, I don't think these are being manufactured here, is what burden are we putting on people that want to sell products in our state by doing this? You know, we're trying to make more companies and have more people do this. We're not supposed to be trying to burden them so they don't do it. Yeah, I read a little bit on that bill, so.
What I suggested to him, and he thought it was a pretty good idea, is that we form a discussion group and talk to some of the gentlemen and ladies that haul this material and see if we can find some private, public-private partnership and ask them. They're the ones that dispose of it. What do they think? What is the next market for this material? And he thought that was a pretty good idea. He would mention that, and I emailed the town administrator of Shaftesbury, and just floating that out there. And that,
you know, there's one thing that I think that would probably do us some good, just because you said that. At some point, we should have someone that does that come in here and discuss with us because of what's happening. Every year I see these prices of what we pay, whether it's to the committee that's doing this, the group, or whether we're paying to throw it away, is a slow creep. And I think if it gets high enough, we're going to see a slow creep out there, and hopefully these people that clean up the sides of our road will be able to keep up with it.
so just for example, mixed paper products prices to haul went from $57 to $87 per ton, and we've only seen $1 of that, but that's going to go up relatively quickly. Plants in Massachusetts that recycle glass, they closed. So our prices that's going to cause us to get rid of glass are going to go up significantly. The food scraps, Act 148, in 2019, they expect to have 70% compliance in 2020. We're going to be, at least businesses will be eliminating food products, and it's got to go somewhere. It's going to be biomass. So paper itself, China completely cut off paper. We're no longer sending paper to China. I was kind of shocked because, you know, we're recycling, we're taking our paper, and then we're going to China and they were burning it. So much for, you know, the ecology. But a lot of stuff's going on. I read through this entire thing, and I think that we need to have a voice, and I need to keep coming back to you folks and let you know what's going on, because it's going to affect us.
Yep.
So I'm keeping my eye on that for us.
And the higher costs of disposal are going to increase illegal dumping.
Now,
That was brought up too, and that's something I'd like to avoid.
and the BCRC's basically one of the key players.
Absolutely. Mike Batcher's all over this, and he was at the meeting, and he
Do we
explained some of this vividly.
have all of our members for the BCRC now? Yeah, I'm wondering who's working on that piece.
It would be Michael.
This is all part of that SWIP
Yeah.
plan, right, through the county. Everybody in the
Correct.
county is part of that.
Right. We met at
That's why we're
Shaftesbury.
paying $17,000 a year.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I know, and then basically, I know Tom's involved with that. It's just that you have members that serve on different committees under the BCRC that we've appointed. And I'm just trying
And I
to,
mentioned Tom's all over this. He knows exactly where it goes and why it goes, and you know, he's on top of this. So I keep in constant touch with him on
well,
this.
Tom, we're concerned with the creep on cost.
That's believe me, I told him that on several occasions. So he is. He is. Next item. This has been done before, which we have a student that's following Joel, our highway foreman. It's a work study program from the high school. Young man named Patrick Corin, and he is presently job shadowing Joel. We have all the paperwork on file, and he's doing that.
I love that. Can I speak to that for a minute?
Sure.
At the conference I went to last week, there were a couple towns that were talking about having high school students shadowing all of the departments, the town departments, and how that they don't teach Vermont state governance in the schools, so, and I was saying, well, you know, maybe the high schools should have a select board rather than have a high school principal, and, you know, but maybe we should open up to saying there could be a high school student that's on the select board. I mean, it could be well,
There is no age limit.
a Pownal student
So people could
who's in
run.
high school,
I'll
so they could
propose
run,
Sure,
but not be a voting.
sure, they could run and be a
Member.
voting member.
Oh, really? Oh, let's encourage that. But but aside from that, could we consider?
It'd be nice to have a senior on here, or
Yeah.
someone in the high
It
school.
would be awesome.
You all got plenty of
Yeah, I
seniors.
don't
Oh,
know
you mean
about
high
that.
school?
I'm not that much older, only 20 years. No.
But maybe we could just put out an invitation to have students come and observe.
Make a phone call.
Yeah.
The next item is one that you asked me to do, and I've done. Contacted Ms. Daniels at Judicial Bureau on traffic ticket reimbursement. The forms that we need to send were sent by our treasurer, and it should be in your packet. We are receiving fine monies. It gives you fiscal year 17 and 18. If we look at fiscal year 17, we received $6,697.74. And to date, for this year, we have $3,572.44. When we go into the traffic ordinance, one of the topics that I had with our sheriff was that if we had the traffic ordinance in place, they could legitimately write tickets. We discussed this earlier, and that number would go up. It's certainly not a windfall, but we are getting the monies back. It's predicated on a form, and there's a complicated formula that they use up at the state to divide. There's a whole set of just standard reimbursement we get, and then we get a portion that the person's actually fined. And they have a formula how they divide those monies up. So we are getting our ticket money, and we hope to get more. But I prefer that people wouldn't speed. Okay, and the sheriff himself, I met with the sheriff. He's a gentleman. We talked about the contract, and he was open to some of the discussions that we had. He basically said that if we have any kind of question on what he's charging us for, just let me come and ask him. There are certain areas, for example, that were brought up by Mr. Lansky, that if he's patrolling our town and it's called mutual aid to another town, he could legitimately charge us. So you had an instance where he was actually in Bennington, and the charge went to us because he's legitimately our patrol time, and under the contract and mutual aid, he went to another town. So that could be a charge, and that's under the contract. So when the contract is due, we can discuss whatever you'd like to do, to negotiate a new contract, increase, decrease hours, anything you would like to do. He's very open to it. But he was a complete gentleman, and we had a great talk. The next item is, and this is all Linda. She did a fantastic job. Congratulate her on this. She negotiated with the sheriff a traffic ordinance. And you'll see the traffic ordinance for your first reading. And the back, it gives citation levels for each offense. Process would be, you get a first read this evening, next select board meeting, vote, then it's posted in the website.
Posted on the website, posted for 60 days before
60 days.
it becomes effective.
And then citizens have the opportunity to weigh in on it, ask for changes, omissions, type of thing.
So this is just the first read.
This is the first read. So if you go through anything that you see, including misspellings and so forth.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
In contradiction of what Nelson might have said, but in the first paragraph it states that the speed, no speed in excess of 35 miles per hour unless traffic signs conspicuously posted indicates otherwise. So I guess going back to my negotiations and my request, in the meantime of the study going on, I would prefer if a 25-mile-per-hour sign could be posted there with the understanding that it will be followed And it does say in,
We haven't passed this yet, so be aware
Oh, I
it's
know.
not in effect.
I know, but just to add to maybe a motion that, or later on, you could say, okay, instruct the administrator to have a 25-mile-an-hour sign put there.
Yeah.
But
But what
it does say prior to, all the other ordinances prior, they can collect a fine for speeding.
Yeah, and we don't have an ordinance, that's why we're passing.
Yeah, no, that's fine, it's just.
If we had an ordinance, we could find the 35.
Okay.
So would I have to come back to ask them?
No.
Okay.
The next item is Highway Department worker job description. Largely, this was done by Joel in conjunction with his personnel. This would mean that the last set of job descriptions would be Tom Shuey's folks over at the transfer station. Whatever your pleasure is, if you'd like time to read it and go through it and make comment, that'd be fine.
Joel was fine with it?
Yes, yeah, Joel actually wrote it.
I'd like to approve it.
I'll second.
That's the highway, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on the highway one?
We need one right away anyway.
Right.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Next for discussion is the personnel policy. The gentleman here wanted to read through it and make comment if necessary. I will tell you that Linda alerted me to a new law coming January 1st that employees get 5 sick days, so an additional 2 sick days will be tacked on. That change was made and it's effective January 1st. I would ask that the board would give me permission to make changes that are crafted in law, that instead of coming to you, if a law comes out pursuant to this, I notify you, but I change the policy. Any other changes would have to be met by approval of you. But if it's law, we gotta do it, so.
So the motion that I hear you're looking for is that any statute requirement for the personnel policy will be put in by our town administrator, and you would inform us of that change.
Correct. Any other recommended changes that are not crafted in law?
We're gonna do one at a time.
One at a time.
And because I want to make it clear that we're authorizing you to make changes to the personnel policy, but strictly for statute requirements.
I motion that Michael can make changes to the personnel policy pursuant to the law without our prior approval.
And he would notify us upon the change. Can I get a second to that?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Now, the other one was any changes you would make
Oh, any other changes, that's just, I think.
before the
doesn't-
changes
yeah.
are made, you come,
Absolutely.
you do just what you're doing tonight.
Right.
You get
Yeah.
a standard. Okay.
So this is second or third time, take your time. If there's questions you have, don't hesitate to ask. If you want to move to pass it, that's fine too. Whatever your pleasure.
Can you highlight to us what the changes are since the last time we looked at this?
The only
just
change
talked about the
was
one.
that one change, and, okay,
There was a change.
Lunch
she made a
time,
change
lunch
to,
hour, lunch hour.
The holidays, they weren't consistent.
right, the
on
holidays
two
were
pages.
consistent.
It was the paid half-hour of lunch.
Right, the lunch was the change, as well as
Employee-
seeking outside employment.
Oh, and then changing, where was what page is that language on?
It's on page 3.
Employees, prior to accepting outside employment, will disclose their intent to do so. So I make a motion to approve the personnel policy.
Need a second? Second. Okay, further discussion? And you understand if any changes are made to this, it's the same? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And finally, from you would be the budget report. I've done a lot of arithmetic here. And
Do we have something in? I don't have anything in.
No, you don't.
Okay.
This was the last minute.
Okay.
We are, by and large, on track with expenditures and revenues. Up and down a little bit, but nothing more than 5% either direction. What I'm looking at is, in consideration of the pay raises that we gave, I think around week 40, around April, we're going to have to be a little nervous about where we are. So we're going to begin the budget process starting Monday, but in conjunction with that, I'm meeting all the department heads. I want to go through and look at areas that we can save some money. I've already made some highlights that I want to discuss with them. Essentially, I met with Mr. Shuey this morning and we talked about some of the line items that he has and said if you absolutely don't have to spend any money in that line item so we can start pulling money together, whatever we need toward the end of the year. And the budget process ongoing, we're putting out on Monday all the worksheets. I'm going to meet with each of the department heads individually and go through them and as best we can get a very solid, realistic goal, including we know all the, well, most of the numbers we need for salaries, insurance and so forth. We have some estimates, but we want to get a good solid number to the entire budget, including pay raises. So going forward, we're solid for next year. So working very hard on that, as are the department heads. And unless you have any questions, that is all I have.
Michael, you skipped
missed
over the
one.
town hall alternatives update.
Yeah.
Oh, town hall oh goodness, okay. Okay, beg your pardon. I gave you a decision matrix. So far I met this afternoon, late this afternoon, with WinSync Architects, and they're going to give us a proposal. We talked, Linda and I, with him. Linda having a very good solid knowledge of the flow pattern of what we would have in a town hall and what we expected, and he said that he would bring it in under $700,000 or less. Your decision matrix is, I just made it. And what I ask of you is, if you think of across the top cells, anything that you want to see in the town hall. I've got energy, efficiency, workflow, public spaces, future uses, the safe, how big the safe is. The safe has to be fireproof, parking costs, utility costs, location. If there's any other considerations you want, so that we have a better understanding when we go to these folks what we want, it's included in here. That way when you look at the matrix and you see what one company offers and one company doesn't, then you have a better understanding and be able to make a better decision.
I'd like to know whether they're 2 levels or 1 level.
Good.
And also the, if I could just add, I mean, we got all of these costs are high-level estimates at this point.
Right.
Very high-level estimates,
yeah,
from each one of the organizations. And I would point out that just to be fair to the Historical Society, we added 100,000 to that. That's not their estimate. So that's the only one that's a little bit skewed based on what we added to it.
Yeah, and the 100,000 was because of the type safe they talked about, which was a 6-hour fire safe. So I thought 30,000 is what a safe being estimated for these other places. The other thing was if we really needed a lift because it was 2 levels, that's between 50 and 70 grand. So those were the 100,000 that I came up with. It wasn't for anything else. It's just that if an inspector came down and told us these are the things that were needed, then we will have to. If we don't have to spend it, then we don't. But I want to make sure we're matching apples with apples when we do this.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what my concern was. Is that included in all of the others? And that speaks to your question of, you know, are they multi-level? Are they single level?
Right. I need to know that, and I need to know what type of safe. Because let's face it, this is the town hall records. And you want a records safe that's only going to last 6 hours on the firewall, or do you want one that's permanently real safe?
Right. So, Michael, then the safe is included in the other
correct,
3?
it is.
Okay.
And I think it's important too, I agree with that, but if we're gonna plan a lift in one building, then I think we need to figure the cost of the lift in at the roost also.
All of them, if we're going to do it.
Right,
Yeah.
if it's 2 levels, and the other thing I think that's important too is square footage.
Yeah, I have size. For example, Linsink came in with 5,000, no, that's not correct, I beg your pardon. Don't look at that. Not done yet. I've met with Hoscott, as did Julie and Linda, and they had an initial drawing. They went through it with them, they marked it up, they're going to come back with something after we reviewed it with them. And I want to nail down some of the concerns you have and get you something solid so that we can make a decision. The roost, as it stands, the estimate is $380,000. That's prior to negotiations.
And that's prior to any renovations?
No, that's including reservations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So everything would be done in the side so we move in?
Yes.
So the only thing we would have to consider is what you said, if there's a lift or an elevator, which could be anywhere from 50 to 70. So.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, I think it's important that we are comparing apples to apples.
Oh, correct. Yeah, and you notice I have that.
And I think, you know, one of the important things too is, you know, the costs of maintaining these buildings, you know what I mean, if we have.
Right, if you
Obviously,
notice.
there's different types of construction, different floor plans that would create different scenarios as far
Well,
as.
there's energy savings.
Yeah, we're roughly
Maintenance
$5,000
costs.
increase in our yearly energy bill with the roost. And I don't know what that would be with the other buildings that we have to cost out.
Right.
So whether that's a higher or lower figure.
And something else that also came up is the cost of, once the building's done, is furniture, communications.
We discussed the furniture. We were going to be minimalists. We were going to try to reuse as much what we have here,
Okay.
except what was broken. As far as the IT equipment, we pay the cost to move it. Most of that is fairly new stuff.
Okay.
So it would have to be transferred to the new building. So while it's still a cost, we're not going out and buying all new computers.
A question when you're doing a cost analysis. Some of the proposals are on town land, so we already have that.
Yes.
If we buy these other buildings, that is now money that is no longer on the tax rolls. So are we,
Correct.
so are we looking at, okay, that's gonna cost us
Tax
so
loss,
much every
that's a
year?
line.
Yeah,
That's a line.
I mean, I think you need to weigh that in the,
Yep.
That's a good point.
Very good point. I didn't even think of that. Thank you.
Also, we'd have land to sell.
But
We're not in the real
Right,
estate
yeah.
business.
Yeah, if we bought one, we would sell
That's
it.
right. Why would we keep a piece of land for nothing?
Mhm.
A valuable piece of land.
What, sewer, both wells already drilled, sewers there?
What is that land worth?
That
What
is
is it,
really-
couple acres
60,
there?
right?
well,
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah.
3 or 4? Oh, it's gotta be worth $100,000 in there, right?
With the water and
Put 2
sewer?
nice houses on there.
So that's
They wanted
just
to.
that's something to keep in mind.
All I'm saying is that,
Yeah.
you know, that's a wash as far as I'm concerned.
oh,
over
okay,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you
We
probably,
gotta keep the taxes
Yeah.
down. Jim's over there.
well, he'll tell us.
Good job, Tim.
Okay,
So
thanks, so it's a good point.
taking those.
Yes, Fred.
Just one comment on the cost that the Historical Society originally proposed. That went up a little bit because of, I think it was Tom Shuey suggested that they go full basement to allow for storage.
And
So-
future growth.
Yeah, so, maybe a footnote.
Yeah, well,
For their,
well, I
when
think
you're looking
future,
at their cost.
well, let's put future growth on all these. Let's make it one of the line items.
It
Because
is.
the others might have a cellar or an upstairs that's not being used.
Right.
There's a value to that.
Well, that's the square footage though, right? If we know what the square footage is, then we know how much we need and how much is available for future growth.
Well, one of the things that I suggested when talking to all of them was, look, we want to be conservative, we want to have cost containment, but we also want to recognize the fact that at some point we expand our services. So produce a building that had either the space or reasonably can be expanded in the future after we're all doing something else. So that was something that I put on them. So at whatever point we get to, you'll have to evaluate whether their proposal in the future will allow for future space or whether the future space is included in the plan
It's already being proposed.
already being proposed. Because I gave them that as a mission for them to show that they can do. Because the difficulty is, you've got this feature, this space, i.e. say a basement, and we have file cabinets in it. And then later we decide, well, we want more office space. Well, now we still have file cabinets. Where are they gonna go?
Yeah, the church right here.
That's already full.
Which is already full, yes it is.
It's
So
our stuff.
it's tricky. It's tricky. You know, you can say one thing, but when in reality, when it actually happens, and this is gonna be long after we're not here.
Yeah, you want something that's gonna last 50 to
And I
100
think
years.
the other thing you had to look at too, I know with the last proposal, is there's storage space, and then there's other spaces you convert later on if they're not designed originally to meet that. It can't be.
When wired,
Or fire alarm
Plumbed,
or whatever,
fire
right?
alarm, all those
Windows,
things.
egress, there's a number of.
correct.
Also, what happens to this building?
That would be another decision.
Be sold. No, who knows? And we don't know until you get to that point. And it has some historical value. The front does anyways, I don't know about the back here, but the front certainly does.
But
Okay.
it could potentially offset the tax loss of taking, what you were saying, if this becomes something else, then this
That's
would.
correct.
So I gotta tighten this up.
All right, sounds good. What else you got?
And that would be it, unless I skipped over something. I mean,
No? Okay, thank
you're
you.
in the old business.
Town newsletter.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank
Have a good night.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask if you could please remember to send it out for review before you send it off, because I would have
You did,
noticed.
didn't you?
I didn't receive it.
No, she's actually right. You know, I was a little late, I was on a business trip, and I knew I was running under the gun, so I needed to get it out, but there was nothing controversial in it.
Maybe that's
I
what
will do that in the
maybe
future.
what I saw was what you sent out.
No.
That could be true.
Well, just
So-
because there's a pretty big mistake in it, so I just want to let folks know that we have new email addresses. So if you want to email any of us, go to the website to find those email addresses rather than the newsletter, and I
Right,
think
and-
we changed it for the printed version.
And I changed it in the Word version, so it'll be changed going forward, and I would just say that I did check the website on the day that I sent it out, and it still had our private emails. That was on October 2nd.
Yeah.
I've been begging for 3 months for that list of email addresses. I just got them the other day.
Well, and it wasn't an accusation. It
No,
was
I'm
just
just saying.
I'm
Says I'm here.
checking it there. So.
But
Well,
this is
So,
and I
I'm
should,
checking
and
it there.
I
but you
should,
knew there were, so just like maybe don't think before going with just what the website says, since you did know that we had. new email
well, yeah, I
addresses,
think
so.
sending us a copy first is the real way to go.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely
Now here's the thing, Bob. All my stuff that was on the website for my mail address, I never received because I was getting select person 1 and the other stuff, but the N Brownell,
That wasn't linked?
I got a hold of Chuck this week and now I have it.
Okay, and understand where I hadn't received them, it really had nothing to do with me setting up the forward. It was that they were being sent to the new email address before I ever had access. I didn't have a domain, I didn't have a username, I didn't have a password.
I just couldn't get to it. I don't know where it was going, but I went there and I had about 20 emails, so.
But I did appreciate the,
And it now is forwarded to my select person 1, so I think.
So the easy thing for everybody out there is it's our first initial dot last name underscore sb@townofpownal.org. That's the email address for each one of us.
And that's what I wasn't receiving.
Right. But now yes. So n.brownell_sb@townofpownal.org. I'm just trying
Yeah.
for the
Select
people out
person
there
1
know that we
and
have
those.
new email addresses.
I think to make things a little bit easier, I will be proposing, but I need to talk to Chuck first. I need to talk to our email guy first to understand exactly how we can do this. But one thing I want to propose is that we do have a group email address that is all select board members. So we have one email address that will go to everyone on the select board. And actually I'm going to propose 3 of them. You should have another one that's all select board plus the TA plus the administrative assistant. And another one that would be something like website updates at townofpownal.org, and that would be the select board, the TA, the administrative assistant, and the webmaster. If we have those group email addresses, then all of us are informed proactively.
But
Oh.
you're gonna add some, you're gonna add the planning board as a group. You're gonna add
That's
the
a good idea.
DRB as a group.
Yeah.
And once we start going down that path, there's a whole bunch of them that you can add.
But
But it makes it a lot
those
easier.
people try to make groups of their own, and if we already had that group, it makes it a lot easier, certainly for us if we wanted to send something to the planning board.
I like the groups idea very much. I don't like the idea of having a group that any web changes come to us. I would rather not have my email flooded with all website changes. They're coming from all over the place.
You also have to keep in
Well-
mind, every group you add is gonna cost you more money every single month, just so you know. Every email address part.
There's a fee.
Well, no, okay, I know that I can set those up myself, because when I go in there, I
Yeah,
can create a
I can
group
too.
email
Anybody can
address.
do it,
yeah.
But that's more for personal use. We want to
Right.
make sure that it works for external as well. So,
With that
and
caveat.
I would have to understand what those costs are, because, you know, the company I work for.
So
does
you
it
have access to
pretty
the email
extensively.
portal at Rackspace and not just your email web box?
No, that's not what I said. I said that when I log into to the new Rackspace email, my personal account,
Okay.
I have the ability to go and set up a group email. I believe those only work for me.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
that's
so I'm correct.
I was
on
trying
that.
to help you, yes.
Yes, that's okay. So, yes, that's correct. That's why I asked Chuck, because, and when I asked him, I said, I think that the ones I set up can't be used externally. I'll need to understand from you what needs to happen in order to set them up
Right.
so that they can be used by external entities.
Yeah, we need to know what the cost of those are, because I can see where it's an advantage to a lot of the things that we do in town, but let's find out what it costs.
Right, and maybe we pare this down. Maybe it's Select Board TA and Linda, we don't do the all Select Board, and then we also do the Webmaster one. As far as the Webmaster one, you can actually set up a different folder that when you get them from this email address,
Goes directly.
it
to-
goes directly into a folder,
I
and you
know.
never have to look at it.
I know. I'd rather not spend the time doing that. But anyway, it's a here and a there.
No, okay. Okay, done with town newsletter?
Yeah.
Open meeting discussion.
If you notice, I put, from the Vermont Secretary of State, had a guide. I put that in your, and I went to a conference, went to the town fair conference and sat in, the senior staff attorney at Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, so I hope I'm up to speed on it. So whatever discussion you had, I'm not aware of or wanted to have, so if I can help in any way.
Well, I just wanted to remind everyone again that you can't hit reply all on emails that have all the select board members on it. Unless it's,
Which is another reason why we shouldn't have all the web updates going to everybody on the select board. Because they're gonna be coming from me, and everybody sends to my web admin address now. And I reply back to them. If every update goes to every select board member, then it becomes a discussion.
yeah.
Well,
So if Jen,
I don't get any email yet, so I don't know how you guys set it.
so
he
Jen-
hasn't-
I
he
didn't
hasn't
set it
his
up.
I don't know how you guys set it, whoever's got it.
If I set it up,
I don't
never
know.
mind.
So Jen emailed Jason with a topic of discussion, stops that conversation and contacts him with the same topic, that's open violation
That's
law.
open
Right.
meeting.
Yes, that's correct.
That's open meeting violation. Because now you're talking to a majority about the same
That's right.
topic, so
If they just talk back and forth, they're fine.
they're fine. And it goes into, you're all invited to a dinner someplace. You just cannot talk about anything work-related. There's a bunch of nuances to it.
Yep.
You had these arrows and matrices pointed up there, so.
But back to that point, I
Me?
think it's, I'm sorry, the point that you were making
Yeah.
about the reply all.
I need to be able to ask questions when somebody sends me an update, and I'm not gonna do it to 10 people. I want the one person sending me the update, and that's it.
I think everybody, but we agreed a couple of select board meetings ago that we believe that select board members should be aware of, proactively, of what changes are happening on the website.
That's
So how
different-
else
that's
can
different.
we accomplish it?
But that's different than, we here, I would assume, makes the suggestion for what the change is. At that point, it goes to,
I'm told
You-
it's to
Well,
come
that's
from
not
Michael,
true.
Linda, or department heads, or you, the chair.
you know, and at that point, they go. But usually there's no change unless we're asking here first.
Well, no, but I'm trying to make it easier for whoever administers the newsletter also. So if the newsletter is going out on a Friday, say for example, and everything that you'll be working on the weekend is already known, it can be up to date for Monday, even though the website isn't yet. So I mean, it just makes it easier for who's ever doing the newsletter. Plus, I think, and not all of updates go to, come to the board. There's some just regular updates. that
Yeah,
just happen.
they're
the
making
DRB or the planning commission, they send their minutes, and if we do that, then we're gonna be getting all of that into our inboxes.
Well, maybe we wouldn't do it for the minutes. Maybe it's the, maybe there might be some exceptions that Linda can send,
I think when there's a major change to the web, then we should be notified, all of us. If it's the minor changes to do with people sending minutes or things of that nature, we know enough to go to the web and look for minutes
Right.
and stuff like that, and I hope our citizens does too. What I'm looking for is
Well,
when all of a sudden you do a design change that people can't find something, we need to notify people that we're making those changes before it occurs.
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't you, I mean, you're just starting to do this, why don't you keep it sort of minimal right now, and then as you're using it, if you notice, oh, wait a moment, this one piece is real inconvenient, we need to do something, then make changes. But I wouldn't add complexity to it until there's a need.
Yeah, and I don't think at this point there's a need where I need to know every minor change that's being made to it. But I do want to know if something's being made that has an impact on the public that has to use it.
Yeah.
That's-
well, it would also be easier with things like for example, I would like to see who's coming in for the economic committee. I know I trust you totally to go through them and vet them, but we're not looking for filters. We're looking for some vetting and to make sure that we're fully informed. And it would be nice if that was in real time. So there are some things that we solicit from the town that if we had a group email address, we can all be
Yeah, I was gonna say,
informed of
that's
it in real time.
But
instead
that's
of-
different than what the web discussion, the group email comes from.
And not to pick on you, you picked up your cell phone to silence it, which was a respectable thing to do. Recommend you don't use cell phones for anything while you're here, because if you have a cell phone, he has a cell phone, and you're both looking at it, somebody could accuse you of passing information over.
That's right. And we actually had a select board discussion where we brought that up as well.
Yeah, that's bad mojo. We don't want to do that.
Okay, I'm
I'm
gonna,
done.
we're moving on to gravel purchase.
I recommend that we go to executive session to talk of a contract. A contract and the other two items I suggest are worthy of executive session too. Or unless, actually, request that we just speak quickly to the external auditor. I'm still working on that, trying to work with Mr. Fisher and the company, our external auditor, to try to find out how we're going to get our audits done on time. There's still a lot of work to be done. I really don't have a ton to report on that.
Can I have a question? Do we have an auditor at all now?
We have Priscilla Maxon.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is the external auditor.
No, I
Yeah.
understand, but I just knew we had lost.
We have one at the moment.
We need 2 more. Could use 2 more.
In general, on the temporary assessor, what we have done is, at this point, 3 entities, 2 individuals, and then NIMRIC. And we're leaning towards using NIMRIC to come in and assist the listers with both learning the program, going out and updating the assessments, and putting all that information in. And I want to be able to come to you next meeting with a solid recommendation on cost. Maybe NIMRIC, I'm not going to say it's going to be NIMRIC, but of the cost to bring them in on an hourly basis and how long that will take, is I have to talk to them first.
Okay.
Because I talked to the other folks and they said one said 10 days, some said a week, and they gave me the prices, and then I went out and did some research, spoke to the listers themselves. They're leaning towards using NIMRIC. I think it's wise to do that, but I need to talk to those folks to find out what their cost is. I need them to come in to evaluate what needs to be done to get us up to speed, to get them so that we don't have to do this again. And then the third thing I'd like to do is, because it's on my to-do list from you, is make an evaluation of, do we want a part-time assessor? Do we want 3 listers, 2 listers? What combination would work for us? And looking around and talking at the town fair, a lot of towns have been using a part-time assessor. That doesn't mean it fits for us. So I want that individual to make that evaluation and make a recommendation. So that's that. In terms of the gravel, I suggest we go to executive session for contract time.
Will it be coming out of their making this motion tonight, or is this just information?
Nope, this would be, you would be coming out to make a motion.
Okay. So I'll take a motion to go into executive session to talk about contracts.
So moved with a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
Need a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to authorize the town administrator to look up some information on a contract with gravel and then sign off if conditions permit.
I'll make the motion that our town administrator research this and get the information we need for if we need permits or anything else to do with it. If it comes back favorably, we've discussed it, then he has the authority to sign off on that and stuff. Bill, looking for, seeing that's all.
Second. That very eloquently stated
Any
motion.
further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm ready for the
Okay,
calculation.
before we adjourn, I wanted to make an announcement. The Pownal Historical Society Town Office proposal will be held at Pownal Elementary School Gym, Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018, for public information at the meeting. It will start at 6:30 p.m. The agenda is the Pownal Historical Society will be presenting their town office proposal to the town board of upcoming vote on November 6th, 2018. So please plan to attend so you can learn about this project that they're proposing. Thank you. Now I would take a motion.
Let's, I guess, whoever going to discuss external audit for assessment.
That's what he did.
Oh, right.
He did.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion. I'll
Second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye.